I recently went on my first trip to Japan and it was absolutely incredible. So today, not only am I going to be showing you all the amazing Pokemon themed stuff I did, including visiting every single Pokemon Center in Tokyo and Osaka, but I'm also going to be showing you everything else I got up to. From Super Nintendo World to a Hatsune Miku convention to exploring the anime center of the world. So for those who are unaware, this video takes place right after my Pokemon World Championships vlog, seeing as I planned both my Hawaii trip and Japan trip to be right after each other. And upon touching down, my excitement was through the roof. I have dreamed of visiting Japan for so many years, and it was just so surreal to say that I'm actually here now. Upon leaving the plane, I was greeted to the country by a staircase of Mario characters, and after getting through customs, the first thing I see is Miku waving hello and preparing me for a holiday I'll never forget. Now, getting from the airport to the hotel was quite the struggle, because, well, the train lines are unbelievably confusing for a first-time visitor, and especially in a foreign country. But long story short, after struggling to lug my suitcases through the train stations and also having to wait for heavy rain to stop, I finally made it to my hotel in Akihabara. This was probably the biggest "am I actually here right now?" feeling that I've ever felt, because for years I've been seeing Akihabara through other videos and photos, but now I'm actually here. And for those who aren't familiar with Akihabara, it's known as the Electric Town or the otaku/hobby center of the world, where literally every single store around is either an arcade, anime, or gaming themed store. Not to mention just how colorful and unique all the buildings are, so a perfect place to stay for someone like me. Now that was pretty much all of day one because I didn't get to the hotel until pretty late. But on day two, I spent most of my time just exploring Akihabara and losing my mind at how I could possibly not go bankrupt during this trip. Now if you're watching this video for Pokemon stuff, don't worry, because we'll be getting to a lot of that very soon. But yeah, I don't even have words to describe how overwhelmed I was with all these stores filled to the brim with collectibles and stuff you just won't find anywhere else, which is exactly how I wanted to feel. Some shops had things like Zelda and Xenoblade shrines, some had life-size giant statues or gigantic plushes out front, and oh my god, not to mention the gachapon machines. These things are everywhere. It is actually insane. Towards sunset, I then decided it was time to visit my first of many Pokemon Center stores, this one being the Tokyo Station one. Now, Tokyo Station is actually ginormous and basically has a whole shopping center inside of it, hence why there's a Pokemon store here. And it was actually pretty recently renovated and relocated, so it's quite new. The theme for this store was Pikachu in a train conductor costume, which is pretty cool. And what I love about the Pokemon centers is they usually have exclusive merch that can only be found at that specific store. This one having a lot of exclusive conductor Pikachu merch. They also had statues of the Paldean starters, and something that was also in every Pokemon center were these souvenir coin machines, where you put in 200 yen and out comes a Pokemon themed coin. The designs on them are unique to the stores as well, and I made sure to get everyone I could find throughout my holiday. After that, it was time for me to go to the DX Pokemon Center store, which was close by, whilst I waited for my reservation in the Pokemon Cafe.
Holy shit, that is so cool. That is fucking sick. This is huge.
This one's theme was Snorlax and Mew, and had a giant life-size statue of them at the entrance, as well as this Pokemon game memorabilia wall. This store had a bunch of cool exclusives, such as these Pikachu plushies with different costumes. One of them had a Sakura afro, one wore a Greninja suit, and one was Kabuki themed, which might be my favorite Pokemon plush I got in this trip. A lot of the stores also had exclusive pins, which I loved, and oh my god, the sheer amount of plushies this store had was insane. Overall, this was a pretty good store, and after a bit of a wait, it was time for me to enter the cafe, which is conveniently right next door. Obviously, this also had a bunch of exclusive merch that I needed to buy, and oh my god, my wallet is already feeling the pain. The theming was super cool, with a bunch of Pokemon art everywhere, signed posters in the wall, and the tables had a bunch of little statues of the Paldean starters, Pikachu, and Eevee, which is pretty much everything you could ask for in a Pokemon themed cafe. For my meal, I ended up getting the Snorlax themed rice and chicken meal, as well as a Quaxley themed drink with ice cream on top. It was surprisingly delicious as well, which I wasn't expecting, seeing as the downside to themed cafes is usually the food is pretty bad. And to end it off, I got myself an Eevee themed latte. A giant Pikachu then came out to try and steal our food, and oh my god, this is the damage that only one full day caused. And I'm still here for like 2 weeks. But yeah, if it wasn't already obvious, this was an incredible day, and I was still so shocked to actually be experiencing all this. Now, if you thought that was a big Pokemon day, wait until you see day 3. happy, because today I had 3 more Pokemon centers I wanted to visit, starting with the Tokyo Bay one, which was kind of beachy and themed around Ampharos and Marill. This one was super cool because it had a massive screen behind the statues with unique animations for the store, and it also had a bunch of exclusives. There was also this gigantic $100 Buzzswole plush that I totally would have bought if it wouldn't take up my entire suitcase. The next stop was the Tokyo Skytree Center, which is probably the one I was looking forward to the most, seeing as it's all themed around Rayquaza and shiny Mega Rayquaza. The statues here were absolutely incredible, with it looking like they're coming out of the roof. I've seen photos and videos of this store for years, and I couldn't believe I was finally here seeing these fucking awesome statues in real life. There were also the Gen 3 starters hiding around the store, a bunch of exclusives such as plushies of Pikachu hugging the Tokyo Skytree, which I'll explain more about in a minute, and the roof also had this long screen displaying all the Pokemon in their Pokedex order. This store was just so cool and probably my favorite of them all. Now, what is the Tokyo Skytree? Well, basically, it's this absolutely gigantic tower where people go up to sightsee. Now, I didn't actually go up myself today, but I do towards the end of my trip, which you'll see later. There's also a giant shopping center here with a bunch of cool themed shops like a Marvel store, a Shonen Jump store, as well as the big main Kirby Cafe, which I unfortunately didn't go to. Maybe next time. The third and final Pokemon center for the day was the Yokohama store, which was themed around Manaphy, Turtwig, and Kyogre, which had him floating on the roof, which just looks so cool. Now, this starts to happen quite a lot from now on, but the exclusive merch for this store was unfortunately sold out. But hey, at least it's saving me money. I also found this disgusting Among Us shaped Pikachu, and what was crazy was that right next to this store was an official Minecraft store. I didn't even know these existed. And with these 3 stores ticked off the list, there were only 2 more Pokemon centers left in Tokyo, which we'll be visiting tomorrow. So to start off day 4, I went to the Mega Tokyo Pokemon Center, which is meant to be the best one from what I've heard. And whilst, yeah, there was a lot of cool wall artwork, a painting Smeargle statue, as well as a life-size Miraidon statue, which looked so badass. And oh my god, I wish I could just have this in my room. But this really didn't seem that different to the other stores, despite being known as the Mega Pokemon Center. That was until I actually left the store. Now, when they say Mega Pokemon Center, what they really should say is Mega Pokemon Shopping Floor, because the majority of the stuff is spread throughout the entire floor of this shopping center. Like, it was flooded with Pokemon stuff. There were these 2 massive displays that had a statue of literally every Pokemon starter, and I'm literally just talking right now so I could show off more footage because, like, there was just so many statues, like, so many starters, a lot of Unova Pokemon, and, like, it doesn't even stop here. There was also an individual shop dedicated to Pokemon Go, which had life-size statues of the Team Valor, Instinct, and Mystic leaders, alongside Professor Willow, and in the middle of this room, there was, like, this massive LED display that I'm pretty sure would show you what Pokemon were currently taking control of the gym here in-game, and, like, what team held control over the gym the longest and which Pokemon were currently in it. It was just really cool. And then, after walking past some more statues and displays everywhere, there is this little Pokemon-themed sweet store. I just had to get something from here, and something I absolutely loved is how they doubled a Garbodor statue as an actual bin, considering he's like the trash Pokemon. That's just such a good idea. The sweet store also had exclusive merch as well as more unique statues of the sweet-themed Pikachu and Poltergeist, which was super cool. And I ended up getting this like Pikachu chocolate honey waffle thing, which tasted delicious. Okay, I get why they call this one the Mega Store now. Later that day, I also found a pop-up store for Good Smile Racing. Good Smile is an incredibly iconic figure manufacturer that also has their own race car team, which is usually associated and themed with Hatsune Miku. And if you don't know who that is, well, you'll see a lot of her later, because I end up going to a whole convention and a couple of concerts themed around her. But yeah, it was basically a Miku/racing themed pop-up store, which was pretty unique, and just had a bunch of exclusive merch and showcased the decals that were going to be on the hood of the cars for this year. With only 1 more Pokemon Center remaining in Tokyo, I made my way to the busiest and most iconic crosswalk in the world, Shibuya Scramble. And oh my god, yeah, this street hasn't earned its title for nothing, because no matter what time of the day, we're talking thousands of people crossing the street every few minutes. And oh my god, look, it's Persona 5! You know, Shibuya from Persona 5? I can't believe they turned that into a real place. That's crazy. Now, surprisingly, I actually think the street looks a lot smaller in real life than it does on camera, but the crowd certainly don't. But yeah, pretty close by is the last Pokemon Center in Tokyo. However, right in front of it is the Tokyo Nintendo store, which I've been dying to visit as well. As you'd expect, it was plastered with a ridiculous amount of Nintendo merch, including nearly every amiibo ever made, and I literally had to hold back myself so hard, because if I didn't, my wallet would be empty. There were also these really cool statues of Mario, Link, Inkling, Isabelle, Timmy and Tommy, and little Pikmin scattered here and there. Outside there was also this massive 8-bit Mario statue going into a pipe, then right next to the Nintendo store was a Capcom store with this really cool Ryu statue. And then we finally made it to the final Tokyo Pokemon Center. This one I was also really looking forward to, seeing as it has the famous Mewtwo statue where he's in his iconic laboratory tube. Oh my god, this is gonna be one of the coolest statues for a Pokemon Center. And being life-sized, you realize just how massive Mewtwo is actually meant to be. He's gigantic. I was sad to see that the exclusive merch for the store wasn't in stock, seeing as it's all graffiti themed to suit the culture of Shibuya, but at least the store looked pretty different to the other ones and was so cool to finally visit. And with that, I have now been to all 7 Pokemon Center stores in Tokyo. But don't worry, because we'll be seeing a couple more later when we go into Osaka. I actually couldn't believe how much stuff I was packing into each day, especially since this is right after the crazy Hawaii trip as well. Now day 5 I didn't have a whole lot planned, so in the morning I found some cool shrines and temples near my hotel, and I continued exploring Akihabara. Later on I went back to Shibuya because there was just so much to do and see around here. And if you know anything about Japan, you'll know that convenience stores can be found literally every 5 steps you take. Like, it's actually insane. And something funny I found in Shibuya was a Lawson store that for whatever reason was themed around Dragon Quest. No idea why this store specifically, but it was all RPG themed of course, and literally the bell that rings when you enter the store was changed to sound effects from the game, which was pretty funny. Overall, not a whole lot to document today. Well, not that there isn't much to document, but if I described everything I did and saw in this trip, this video would be 24 hours long. So just know, I'm only trying to show off the important stuff. The next day, I got up early to catch the Shinkansen, or more popularly known as the bullet train, into Osaka. Seeing as another bucket list place to visit on this trip was Super Nintendo World in Universal Studios. Now, I didn't go there today because it was more of a transportation day, but oh my god, I cannot get over how crazy Japan is. I decided to stay pretty much in the center of Dotonbori, seeing as that's the big touristy location for Osaka, and just wow, the amount of colors and restaurants and giant statues out front of stores is just insane. Like, how is this place even real? Also, a couple minute walk from my hotel will get you to the iconic Dotonbori Bridge, which almost looks like you're in Times Square. There were also countless giant strips of shops everywhere, which made me want to spend more money. And wait, oh my god, the Osaka DX Pokemon store is right near my hotel, and I didn't even realize that when booking. Now this one has a really cool display of the 3 legendary birds from Gen 1. I just couldn't get enough of these stores, and although the actual stuff inside them were pretty much identical to each other, I still loved visiting them all. There was also the Osaka Pokemon Cafe right next door, but I unfortunately didn't get a booking for this one. Also close by was another Capcom store which had a really cool 3D 8-bit statue of Mega Man, as well as another awesome Ryu statue. There were also plenty of other theme stores around, and then I spotted one of the weirdest things I think I have ever seen.
What the f***? There's just a giant f***ing hamburger. What the f***? This thing is f***ing huge.
I then explored Dotonbori at night, which just looked incredible, and what a great first day in Osaka. Day 7 of this Japan trip started with me going to the final unique Pokemon Center store. Not the final one in Japan, because there's still plenty more I haven't been to, but the final one I had easy access to, and that'd be the Osaka store. Not to be confused with the DX Osaka store. After being to so many of them now, there wasn't a whole lot that could top the others, but this Koraidon statue was incredibly cool, and very similar to the Shibuya store in Tokyo. The center was also right next to the Osaka Nintendo store. Not a whole lot happened today outside of just exploring, but tomorrow it was time for Nintendo World. Now normally, getting into Nintendo World can be quite difficult, because you either need to pay a lot for a certain ticket, or race people in the app to reserve a time slot. However, I was told a life hack that if you get there super early, they open the gates before the park technically opens, and if you go straight to Nintendo World, you could just walk in without having to deal with allocated time slots. And oh my god, this this place was so incredibly one-to-one to the games, it didn't even feel real. Like, if you didn't see all the humans walking around, you could easily convince someone that this is actually just footage from a Mario game. Now, I don't even know where to begin with this place, because there was just so many little activities to do here, seeing as if you buy this like wristband thingy and connect it to your phone, it basically gamifies your whole experience. Like, you can hit your wristband on certain things throughout the park, such as the question blocks and a bunch of like just other interactable things, and it will give you coins and collectibles within the app, and you can like see the scores other people in the park have, and there's like this leaderboard, and it's just super cool. I started off by going on the Yoshi ride, which is kind of like a slow sightseeing ride that just gives you a high view of the park and a bunch of cool Yoshi themed stuff to look at. Then after that, I went on the Mario Kart ride, which almost had a 2-hour line, but that wasn't too bad because even the rooms you line in are incredibly themed with so much stuff to look at. Now, the ride itself I didn't get any footage of because it's like half a real ride and half VR, where it looks like you're actually playing Mario Kart and like throwing items at everyone. And yeah, like everything I've experienced in Japan so far, I cannot fully explain and showcase everything without making a video that'll be longer than watching Avengers Endgame 7 times in a row. Now, I actually wish I explored more of Universal Studios itself and not just Super Nintendo World, but something I've yet to explain throughout this trip is how unbelievably hot it is here. Summers here are brutal. Like, I'm from Western Australia, where in summer we get 40 degrees Celsius days quite frequently, but this was just an unbelievably humid and sticky heat, which words cannot describe how horrible it felt at times. And although I was loving experiencing all this, I just had to cut my day at Universal short, because I just couldn't handle the heat today. But I did what I came here for, which was mostly Nintendo World. Do I wish I stayed longer? Yes. But did I experience more than enough of Nintendo World though? Also yes. Day 9 I headed back into Tokyo, and not really a whole lot happened outside of exploring again. Day 10, however, was the start of Magical Mirai, the annual Hatsune Miku convention and concerts, which I've mentioned a couple of times earlier. For those who don't know anything about Miku, let me explain her as best as possible. She's not from an anime, she's not from a game, but she's actually from music. Basically, she's the icon or personification of this voice bank synthesizer. And basically, what that means is someone, in this case Saki Fujita, basically sampled her voice hundreds, probably thousands of times to get all the sounds and syllables a human would make to construct words. Those voice clips are then compiled into a bank that people can use to make lyrics using her voice samples and tune and harmonize them however they'd like. Essentially, it's a way to provide lyrics to your songs digitally. So people who buy the Miku voice bank use it to add digital lyrics to their music. And Miku is the character they've assigned to this voice, known as a Vocaloid. It's basically the personification of the voice. I hope that made sense. It probably didn't, but oh well. So yeah, this convention is a yearly event themed around her and the other Vocaloid characters from Krypton Future Media. Now, I got up at like 4 AM to get here as early as possible because I heard that all the vendors' merch can sell out incredibly quickly. And oh my god, going from tiny anime conventions in Western Australia to one in Japan is insane. The sheer amount of people here was ridiculous. And I'm so glad I got here early because despite a 4 AM wake up, there was still like 1,000 people ahead of me in line waiting for the convention to start. Once we were finally in, I made my way straight to all the merchandise booths to stock up on stuff before they'd sell out. And at one point, I ended up spending 2.5 hours in just one line for a booth because that was just how crowded this convention was. Outside of the vendor booths, there were also heaps of cool things to see, such as the amazing life-size Miku statue with this year's Magical Mirai design, which just looks so good. But then there were also heaps of big walls displaying artworks and like storyboarding for the music videos. There was also a wall where you could put a sticker where you're coming from, and surprisingly, someone put a sticker on Western Australia before I did. There were also these 2 massive panels for people to draw Miku art on, as well as this professional artist who was drawing a massive Miku art piece over the course of all 3 days of Magical Mirai. Now, for the concerts. This was a very new experience for me, and one you really wouldn't see anywhere outside of Japan, because considering the fact that the voices used in the songs are done digitally and not by an actual person, naturally, there isn't an actual human singing the vocals. So what's the solution? Turning these anime characters into life-size holograms and making them look like they actually exist. I have no idea how they pull this off, but yeah, the Miku concerts here use some crazy light technology to make it look like an actual character is on the stage singing the songs, and it actually looks surprisingly good in real life. The band there with the instruments are real people, but seeing as the vocals are digital synthesizers, they use holograms and animate them to sing and dance on stage as if they're actually real. And like I just said, you wouldn't find this anywhere else in the world. Well, outside of Miku Expo, which is just the worldwide equivalent to this, and somehow they're doing one in WA, I cannot believe it. Now, the footage I'm using is probably flipped or edited in some way to prevent them from getting claimed, and I'm only doing this to show you what it would look like, seeing as filming wasn't allowed. And yeah, as you can see, everyone has these pen lights to dance and synchronize with the songs, and the vibes and people chanting to the songs was just such a crazy and unique experience that I absolutely loved. The concert was amazing, the convention was super fun, and oh my god, there's still 2 more days of this event. And I've got tickets for 2 more concerts. So yeah, days 11 and 12 pretty much consisted of me doing the same things. Exploring the convention floor, losing a ridiculous amount of money to merchandise, and going to the concerts again. The atmosphere was actually so good. It was also Poplio Community Day in Pokemon Go during the 11th day, which meant I got a bunch of shinies, which is super cool. And as I was waiting in line for the toilet right before the 3rd night's concert, I managed to get a shiny Makuhita, which I appropriately named Mikuhita. And after having an amazing time at my first magical Mirai, something really small but just really cool was how a bunch of the fans were literally outside the entrance waving goodbye to everyone. These weren't even the staff, these were just other convention goers giving everyone a nice send-off to the event, which was just really wholesome. There was also this guy who had his own portable hologram display and was playing some of the songs on saxophone outside the train station. And overall, it's just such a cool community. I'm almost certainly going to try and come back to Japan for 2025's Magical Mirai. Day 13, I started off by going to Nakano Broadway, which is basically a shopping center with, yet again, heaps of anime, gaming, and collectible themed stores, including probably the smallest and most densely stocked shop I have ever seen. Just look how much is in this store, and to get a sense of the size of these 2 aisles, I had to walk sideways to get through them without bumping stuff over. It was insane. So yeah, as expected, more money was spent here, and towards sunset, I decided to head over to probably Tokyo's most famous temple, Sensoji Temple, which just looked absolutely incredible and was right next to this 5-story pagoda. There were also heaps of markets around here and lots of people wearing kimonos and basically what you'd expect to see on a Japan trip. Absolutely loved it here. Day 14, I went to Harajuku and down the iconic Takashita Street, and then went to another temple nearby in the woods known as the Meiji Temple. I know I'm going over this stuff pretty fast, I'm sorry, but I did so much and I'm just trying to convey that to you in as short of time as possible. Day 15, I finally decided to do something I've been looking forward to this whole trip, and that would be to actually go up the Tokyo Sky Tree. The past few days have been super cloudy and I wanted more clear weather, and this was the clearest of the past few days. And I don't think I mentioned this earlier, but looking up at the Sky Tree from the base is so surreal and genuinely looks like a space station or something because it's just ginormous. Yet again, video does not do this justice. So after being shot up into the air with a Pokemon themed elevator, I got a crazy view of this massive concrete jungle of a city. Everywhere you look is buildings upon buildings upon buildings all the way to the horizon. And if you haven't already guessed from the Pokemon themed elevator, the Sky Tree currently had a Pokemon Horizons campaign going on to promote the anime. So naturally, there was a bunch of cool little Pokemon cutouts and displays everywhere, which is just such a Japan thing to do. You literally cannot go anywhere without finding Pokemon, and that's exactly how I like it. The views were just so surreal, and it actually wasn't all that expensive either. Near the exit, of course there is a pop-up shop with a bunch of new exclusive Pokemon merch that I need to buy before the campaign ends. And actually, one of the restaurants up here had some limited time Pokemon food and drinks, so I decided to treat myself to a Pokemon meal overlooking the city, which included katsu chicken, a Quaxley drink similar to the one from the Pokemon Cafe, and a chocolate chip muffin with a shiny Rayquaza plastic thing on it. Later that day, I decided to check out another iconic tourist attraction, and that would be Tokyo Tower, the red Eiffel Tower lookalike, which in my opinion looks way better. I managed to find quite a few spots in nearby areas to get really cool photos and footage of it, and a lot of the rest of the day was mainly spent just exploring more places, because that's just something you can never get bored doing in Japan. Also, that night, my Pokeball Plus Plus device actually ended up catching me a shiny Wooloo in Pokemon Go, which only released a couple of days prior, so that's cool. And unfortunately, day 16 was my final day of this incredible holiday.
It's my last night here, so I'm packing everything up, and holy shit, I have got a lot of f***ing stuff to pack, and I'm running out of room, and I don't know how much it weighs, so I could be over the limit. This is f***ed.
And outside of doing some final shopping and exploring, I decided to end off my trip by going to the Sky Tree again to see the city during the night this time. I went back to the restaurant for dinner and got a Pikachu themed drink, and the muffin this time had an Bolivar cutout thing. The views were absolutely mind-blowing, and the next morning I checked out, made my way to Narita Airport, and said goodbye to the place I've dreamt to go for so many years. But before you click off this video, let's see just how much shit I bought, not only in Japan, but in Hawaii as well.
Okay, I'm back home now, and this is genuinely fucked. This is fucked. This is my bed. This isn't all of it. I still got all this, like, fucking gachapon so many just things, and my room, it's already full. Where do I put any of this? This is fucked. There is actually just an unbelievable amount of shit I bought.
This holiday was pretty much perfect and went exactly how I wanted it to go. I cannot wait to come back to Japan, which honestly might not be that far away, because this place is just heaven for a nerdy person like me. There's still an infinite amount of things I'd love to do here, and I hope you enjoyed checking out all the stuff I did. Be on the lookout for more holiday videos like this down the road, and thank you all so much for watching.